The Hollywood actors and writers strike has been making headlines all around the world. While significant support and solidarity has been shown to the strikers from the grassroots level, certain sections of mainstream media are determined to present the strikers as heinous villains seeking to wreck the entertainment industry for everyone. So today, Anna and I are going to discuss why these strikes are happening in the first place, how they're going at the moment, the importance of organised militant labour action in general, and the challenges presented to workers by technological development and automation under the capitalist system, particularly now with the development of artificial intelligence. So, Anna, when did these strikes begin and why?
Since May 2nd of this year, the Writers Guild of America, a labor union that represents professional screenwriters in the entertainment industry, has been on strike.
The main reasons behind these strikes is that the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, AMPTP, has cut much of the share of residuals of screening media from the average income of writers, who are struggling to make ends meet despite the crucial role their labor fulfills in production, in order to increase their own profits. The AMPTP has also threatened to replace writers with artificial intelligence such as ChatGPT.
Until these strikes became national news, the struggles of writers in the entertainment industry were not really well known.
These workers behind the scenes of our favorite streaming TV series and talk shows often face long hours, limited job security, and a lack of control over their own work. The average yearly salary for entertainment media writers in the United States is $68,000 a year. To put this into perspective, the cost of living in Los Angeles, where Hollywood is located and where most of these strikes are occurring, is so high that 51% of people in the city of Los Angeles with an annual salary of at least $100,000 a year are reportedly living paycheck to paycheck. Additionally, to live comfortably in the Los Angeles metropolitan area as a whole by yourself with no children, you need to make at least $76,000 a year. So, while these big Hollywood producers are making millions and living in huge mansions near Rodeo Drive, the average writer in the city doesn't even make enough to live comfortably in the city.
This strike comes after constant demands for change from the writers towards the AMPTP, who ignored them.
The WGA tried to reach an agreement with the AMPTP and submitted a proposal which would improve the pay, insurance options, and working conditions for writers, such as requirements for the minimum amount of writers and minimum duration of employment per production to, amongst other things, eliminate the constant struggle of understaffing and unsteady and short-term employment that many writers have had to deal with. An assurance that each member of a writing team receives their own pension and healthcare funds, and to raise the minimum wage of writers in Hollywood.
Despite the WGA's efforts to create dialogue and improve production for everyone, the response of AMPTP has been non-cooperation and cold indifference.
So, on April 18th, more than 97% of the 1,500 members of the Writers Guild of America voted that if the AMPTP didn't reach a satisfactory agreement with them by the end of the night on May 1st, they would go on strike.
And alas, that is exactly what they did. So Paul, how are the strikes going?
Well, as you pointed out, this strike's been going on for over 2 months since the 2nd of May, and it has to be said that they're bringing the entire industry to a standstill, as well as other industries that are dependent upon it, like catering, hair and makeup, and so on. This will indefinitely delay releases for many popular shows and films like Stranger Things and Handmaid's Tale, much of which won't be felt by consumers until next year. This is also mobilising other sectors of the entertainment industry, such as the Screen Actors Guild, SAG or SAG, and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, AFTRA, which merged in 2012 to become SAG-AFTRA, and which collectively represents roughly 160,000 actors and artists. This is the largest film industry labour strike in decades, marking the first time that actors and writers have come together to strike simultaneously since 1960. While most of us envision actors as just being multi-millionaire superstars on red carpets, the reality is that most actors, like writers, are struggling working people with precarious jobs and shitty bosses. In fact, 87% of SAG members, for example, earn less than $27,000 per year, while only 2% of SAG members are able to be full-time actors with no other source of income. So the overwhelming majority of these striking actors can't survive solely on the money they make on screen, and thus find themselves taking up second and third jobs to make ends meet, struggling to juggle their work schedules with auditions and filming times. Similarly to the writers, actors find their jobs under threat as producers push to replace them using an emerging technological development straight out of a Black Mirror episode. Artificial intelligence capable of using anybody's likeness to produce infinite new content forever. Actors, including extras, are understandably terrified that their voices, their faces, and their bodies could be used without their permission by the entertainment industry, potentially finding themselves on screen in billion-dollar blockbuster movies that were either underpaid for or not paid for at all. Here's how SAG-AFTRA president and actress Fran Drescher described the situation.
What happens here is important because what's happening to us is happening across all fields of labor by means of when employers make Wall Street and greed their priority, and they forget about the essential contributors that make the machine run. I am shocked by the way the people that we have been in business with are treating us. I cannot believe it, quite frankly. How far apart we are on so many things. How they plead poverty, that they're losing money left and right when giving hundreds of millions of dollars to their CEOs. The entire business model has been changed by streaming, digital, AI. This is a moment of history that is a moment of truth. If we don't stand tall right now, we are all going to be in trouble. We are all going to be in jeopardy of being replaced by machines. So the jig is up, AMPTP. We stand tall. You have to wake up and smell the coffee. We are labor and we stand tall and we demand respect and to be honored for our contribution. You share the wealth because you cannot exist without us. Thank you.
In response to this strike, the AMPTP has turned to vicious, brazen class warfare. As stated in Vanity Fair, the AMPTP wants the Writers Guild of America to bleed out and is willing to let the strike drag on until the writers run out of money. The same article claims that the studios have no intention of coming back to the negotiating table with the WGA until the fall, a top-tier producer told Deadline. Not Halloween precisely, but late October for sure, is the intention. Per Deadline, the AMPTP is willing to wait until it feels that the writers are cash-strapped and are more willing to compromise on their demands. The studios and the AMPTP believe that by October, most writers will be running out of money after 5 months on the picket lines and no work, reads the Deadline report. The studios and the streamers feel they would be in a position to dictate most of the terms of any possible deal. An insider called the strategy a cruel but necessary evil. Despite this, the strike marches on from Hollywood to New York City to Washington DC. And some familiar faces have joined the strike in solidarity or as workers themselves. So, are the workers really just these troublemakers who are out to ruin everything for everyone? Sections of mainstream media are actively trying to turn the public against these strikers by emphasizing the negative impact that this is going to have on consumers whose favorite shows will be delayed. But Anna, who's in a totally different background for no reason, who's really to blame here for these strikes?
No idea what you're talking about, Paul. This has been my background the entire time. But anyway, this is a classic example of chickens coming home to roost. The producers and executives at AMPTP have been deliberately ignoring the demands of writers and actors for years, and now they want to pull the "we're losing billions of dollars, people are being left without work because of the strike, ooh woo, poor us" card to try and paint the writers and the actors as greedy for not trying to live in poverty, especially while working for blockbuster films and hit Netflix TV shows. They're also acting like the labor unions are refusing to negotiate or cooperate with them when, as previously mentioned, they're the ones who have refused to bend to a single one of the demands of the unions during these negotiations. It's a classic capitalist BS card that gets pulled every time workers strike for higher wages, better working conditions, and in this new age against themselves being replaced and copied by artificial intelligence. UPS executives are pulling this same exact card as we speak against their own striking workers, who, by the way, have no air conditioning in their delivery trucks in the middle of one of the hottest summers in history, may I add. Every time workers put their foot down and strike against their exploitation, the capitalists who make a fortune off their labor try to paint them out to be the villain on mainstream media. I know we say this a lot, but we live under a class society, and thus the news media that we consume is mostly media that sides with the interests of the capitalist class against the struggle of the working class. So I think with that, we should answer the question of why are strikes a threat to the interests of the capitalist class?
So, strikes are fundamentally about increasing and asserting organised working class power, and this of course necessarily means reducing the power of the capitalist class. Now, how far that assertion of organised working class power goes will depend. Some seek to simply use strikes to win reforms within the confines of the current capitalist system, while others seek to push it all the way to proletarian revolution, with these strikes being treated as steps along the way to that destination. The ruling class perceives strikes as a threat to their interests because they disrupt the status quo and highlight the inherent class antagonisms within the capitalist system, potentially paving the way for larger scale challenges to their dominance, i.e. revolution. To be a bit more specific now, strikes disrupt the capitalists' ability to accumulate profits since production is halted or reduced. Now, without a steady flow of goods and services being produced and sold, the ruling class faces financial losses and risks reduced profits, which of course directly challenges their economic dominance. Strikes also foster solidarity among all kinds of workers, encouraging them to recognise their shared interests and common relationship to the means of production. This is important as this unity challenges the division and fragmentation within the working class that the capitalists use to maintain control over us and prevent us from exercising united collective action. The fact that writers and actors are striking together then strikes fear in the minds of the capitalist class. If these workers in the film industry were to unify with workers' movements across sectors to coordinate effective, multi-pronged responses to these attacks, for example, sympathy actions from workers in the tech industry to challenge the interests of capitalists in replacing actors and writers with AI technology, then the capitalist class at large would have a huge challenge to their hegemonic control over the means of production. Finally, by going on strike, these unions are bringing national attention to the exploitative nature of labour relations under capitalism as a whole. There's nothing more radicalising than people realising that, without the exploited workers who make the world go around, almost nothing would get done. As we've said, the entire entertainment media production industry in the United States is practically shut down due to these strikes. If these writers and actors have the power to do this, then imagine what all the workers collectively could do together to challenge the ruling class everywhere through a general strike. The capitalist class would of course be brought to their knees.
Very important points, Paul. And I'd also like to add that history has shown us that strikes have the potential to become a catalyst for larger revolutionary movements. How did the Bolshevik Revolution start, for example? As workers become more aware of their power to disrupt the capitalist system, they may become receptive to revolutionary ideas that aim to overthrow the capitalist mode of production. And emphasis on may, because of course, I'm not trying to insinuate that these Hollywood writers and actors are one day away from distributing the quotations of Chairman Mao and waging a protracted people's war, of course, but they are, through their experience in wielding worker power against their exploiters, acutely aware that there is a way to challenge the capitalist class. That overthrowing the capitalist class is not an impossibility. It's a question of will, study, action, and numbers. Successful strikes can strengthen the overall labor movement by demonstrating the efficacy of collective action and emboldening workers to continue unionizing. This is what the ruling class fears the most, that widespread strikes and labor movements might lead to social unrest or even revolutionary upheaval that can threaten the very existence of the ruling class and their control over society. We know that here in the United States, there has been a genuine rise of people who subscribe to anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, and even specifically communist organizations and ideology. This is due to many factors, such as disillusionment with and distrust with the government, younger people having to face even worse economic and social conditions than their parents had at their age, the internet connecting people who otherwise would have never been able to be exposed to communism and other anti-capitalist ideology, theory, and arguments, etc. There's still obviously a lot of work that the American left has yet to achieve education and mass-oriented organizing wise in this anti-communist settler dystopia. And not to mention many revisionist and anti-communist strands in the left itself, but there is a genuine left now in the United States. With that, we've seen a rise in labor organizing. Amazon, the Writers Guild, the rail unions who tried to organize a strike before Biden basically union busted them. I mean, so many other examples. The American labor movement is rising, and with them, strikes. And that's terrifying to the capitalists. Their fear is us as workers uniting across industries in multiple regions across the country to engage in a general strike and halt the entire economy until we get what is owed to us. And the truth is, we are even closer to being able to achieve that than we were 10 years ago. That doesn't guarantee that it will happen. But with all of these labor unions and workers' movements around the US and a growing number of people who are sympathetic to them, it is objectively, however little, more likely to happen.
Exactly, yeah. The objective conditions are ripening and the subjective factors are strengthening within the US. However, it isn't just growing unity among workers across industries within the US that's needed to challenge the capitalist class, but also across borders. Capitalists have historically shown that they can and will attempt to source scab labour, often even from abroad, to undercut the strikers' efforts. In the case of writers and actors in the entertainment industry, they might instead hire workers from abroad who aren't members of the striking organisations to avoid meeting the strikers' demands. This can only effectively be combated with firm proletarian internationalism, unity across the sea of workers globally. Though, this kind of unity won't happen magically by itself and will require struggle in order to be achieved.
Absolutely. So, touching again on the topic of AI and automation, we can clearly see by these strikes that the battle of workers being replaced by AI and automation is gaining steam. But one has to wonder, how much of this is a losing battle under the capitalist system?
So, as Marxists, we understand that capitalists have always sought to constantly create new technology to automate labour and maximise the realisation of profits in the short term, but which, ironically, reduces the rate of profit in the long term. This is what we're seeing happen with AI in the film industry, potentially automating the writing process with tools like ChatGPT, as well as using AI to replace actors using their likeness. So for example, instead of paying actors for a full week of work, they might instead pay for one day of work and then use AI to build on that and do everything else, massively decreasing workers' income and keeping that money instead in the pockets of the capitalists. For better or worse, this technological advancement is unavoidable. It's already here, but workers, through striking and other forms of collective labour struggle, may be able to secure certain regulations alongside this technological development. So look, the tech is here to stay whether we like it or not. The task now is to make sure that workers are still able to make a decent living alongside it, without falling into even more precarious gig economy work. This is where the relevance of the demands of this strike shine through, protecting workers' livelihoods for the foreseeable future. But it has to be asked, is the film and TV entertainment industry going the way of the music industry before it? Which of course used to be extremely lucrative before the technological development of the internet meant music files could be infinitely replicated virtually for free, and which has forced musical artists to forego record deals and contracts, instead resorting to alternative ways of making money, like for example using Patreon or relying on YouTube ad revenue.
Like us. Join our Patreon and watch our videos.
That was very humorous.
Oh my God. Stop
That
it.
was very humorous. Laugh. Give us money. Pay up. Money.
Money.
Now. Let's
in the
go.
bag. Right now. Right now. Right.
Naturally. Yeah. Do that. But anyway. But anyway, it looks like automation and, particularly with AI, will inevitably be taking the jobs of many working class people in the world where, to be honest, already finding a job, let alone a decent one, is hard enough. So what if, in this new world of AI and automation, we didn't live in a society where you had to work tireless hours to the detriment of your mental, physical and psychological health to generate profit for a capitalist in order to afford having a roof over your head? In other words, what might be different about AI and automation of labour if we lived in a worker state rather than a capitalist state?
To summarize this, in a worker state, this would be just fine. In a worker state, we wouldn't even have to work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 40 to 45 hours a week, because it has been scientifically proven that we do not need to be spending that much time at work to make the world go round, to be productive. All that time we spend at work just sitting there is exactly what it feels like, wasting time. We wouldn't have to do that in a worker state to survive. I mean, if you can even call it survival, as so many of our wages aren't even living wages. So in a worker state, AI and automation taking up certain jobs would not result in people losing a livelihood. Though I would argue that even in a worker state, it's not the arts and humanities sector that should be taken over by automation and AI, while the service, industrial, and agrarian sector is still reserved for people. It should be the other way around.
Agreed. Unless, of course, people really want to continue with that kind of work. I'm reminded of that old passage by Marx, that under socialist society, each can become accomplished in any branch he wishes. Society regulates the general production and thus makes it possible for you to do one thing today and another tomorrow. To hunt in the morning, fish in the afternoon, rear cattle in the evening, criticize after dinner, just as you have in mind, without ever becoming hunter, fisherman, herdsman, or critic. Workers of the world, this could be us, but you playing.
just like very humorous.
Unlike under capitalism, automation in a worker state would mean we could spend less time doing work and everyone could enjoy the fruits of technological development, rather than just a few capitalists at the top who benefit from automation at the expense of everyone else under the current system. If, for example, your job could be sped up with machinery to take only 1 hour rather than 8 hours, that would be 7 hours that you would no longer need to work. Alternatively, and hopefully, you might say, okay, I'll get my work done in 1 hour and then spend a couple of further hours working for the benefit of all society, fulfilling not only your own immediate needs, but also the broader needs of the people. And in such a society, there would be no question of anti-human activities like AI stealing your likeness for the profit of individual private capitalists. This isn't in the interests of workers, and so workers being in power would have no reason to do it. In short, automation under a society led by and for working people is a blessing. Meanwhile, under capitalist society, automation is in many ways a curse for the overwhelming majority of working people. Anyway, up to striking workers. All power to the people.
All power to the people. Thank you so much to everyone who donated to the GoFundMe. Now you can hear me, you can actually see me, and I'm super excited about it. If you want to continue supporting our independent left-wing media, consider joining our Patreon. The link is below, and as always, a massive thanks to our current supporters. Buenas tardes, noches y mañanas, casamas. Adiós y shalom.